Ethan Ward stepped off the sleek spacecraft onto the surface of Zithera, his boots crunching lightly on the glowing crystal sands. The air shimmered with a faint blue light, carrying a soft hum that seemed almost musical. He paused, letting the moment sink in. This was humanity's first official contact with an intelligent alien civilization, and the enormity of it made his chest tighten. Around him, massive towers of transparent crystal rose like jagged mountains, reflecting the sunlight in dazzling patterns. Floating platforms drifted lazily above, carrying beings with translucent wings that shimmered with the colors of the sky. Ethan adjusted his jacket and glanced around. Other humans were stepping off the shuttle, exchanging cautious looks with the Zitheran guides. Each alien moved with an elegance that made every human motion feel clumsy by comparison. Their skin glowed softly in shades of violet and green, and their eyes, large and almond-shaped, seemed to look straight into one's thoughts. Despite the beauty and strangeness, Ethan felt a rush of excitement. This was history. He was part of it. The delegation was escorted into the central city, where a grand reception hall floated above a wide, iridescent lake. Ethan marveled at the architecture. The walls were carved from a single massive crystal, etched with patterns that shifted subtly as though alive. The ceiling reflected the water below, creating the illusion that the room floated in the sky. Zitheran citizens moved gracefully through the halls, their voices harmonizing in soft, melodic tones that seemed to resonate with the crystal around them. At the far end of the hall stood the princess. Ethan had seen official holographic images of Lysera before, but nothing compared to the reality. She radiated a soft, glowing light, and her robes shimmered in shades that reminded him of dawn clouds. Her hair floated slightly, as if weightless, and her eyes, large and liquid, seemed to see everything at once. She was looking directly at him, and for a moment Ethan felt frozen, as if time itself had slowed. He forced himself to step forward, clearing his throat. "Your Highness," he said, bowing slightly. His voice sounded oddly small in the vast hall. Lysera smiled, a slow, gentle curve of her lips. "Welcome to Zithera, Ethan Ward," she said. Her voice was musical, each word carrying a subtle vibration that made the air feel alive. "We have heard much of Earth." "It is an honor to meet you, Princess." He took a breath, trying to steady the nervous excitement that threatened to betray him. As a diplomat, he had trained for years in protocol, in language, in negotiation. None of that prepared him for this, standing before a being who seemed to embody the wonder of an entire planet. They walked slowly along the crystal bridge that overlooked the floating lake, joined by translators who interpreted both spoken and subtle thought patterns. Ethan tried to focus on the conversation, but his eyes kept drifting to Lysera's face. There was something more than beauty in her gaze. There was curiosity, and when their eyes met again, he felt a sudden, unexpected warmth in his chest. Almost without thinking, he murmured under his breath, "I wish I could marry her." The air seemed to thrum around him, charged with the energy of her words. "Your Highness, he began, unsure how to respond. Lysera smiled again, serene and confident. "There is no shame in your heart, Ethan. Your wish is simple but true. That is enough." This was unprecedented. No human had ever dared speak such a thought openly, and no Zitheran princess had ever responded so directly. An elder draped in robes of deep amethyst stepped forward. "Princess Lysera," he said, his tone careful, This is highly irregular. The customs of our people, a union with a human." "Elder Tarian," she said calmly, "the heart does not follow rules alone. This human has shown courage, honesty, and curiosity. These are virtues we value above all. If he wishes to join our lives, we will see whether he can meet the trials of Zitheran unity." Somehow he knew that whatever lay ahead, he would face it with her. The hall settled into an uneasy silence, broken only by the soft hum of crystal and water. Humans whispered among themselves, astonished by what they had just witnessed. Zitherans exchanged glances, a mixture of skepticism and awe in their glowing eyes. No one had ever seen the princess act so boldly, and certainly not in front of outsiders. Lysera guided Ethan to a balcony that overlooked the floating city. The sky above shimmered with twin suns, casting the crystals below in hues of gold and violet. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. This was more than a meeting of two individuals. This was a convergence of worlds, a bridge between species, a challenge to the conventions of two civilizations. He took a deep breath. "Princess, if this is true, if you mean what you said, I don't even know where to begin. If our hearts and minds align, the rest will follow." Humans were clumsy in comparison, yet Lysera encouraged him to observe, to question, and even to suggest improvements. She seemed genuinely interested in human creativity and unpredictability. One afternoon, while walking through a floating garden where plants hovered midair and absorbed sunlight directly from the twin suns, Ethan asked, "Princess, why me? There are thousands of humans. Why would you?" He realized that he was drawn not just to her beauty, but to her spirit, her courage, her ability to see him for who he truly was. As they walked back to the crystal hall, alarms suddenly sounded, a low, vibrating hum that made the air thick. Citizens and guards rushed past them. Lysera's expression changed instantly from serene to alert. "What is happening?" Ethan asked, heart pounding. "Trouble," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "A sky beast has escaped from its containment. It threatens the lower city districts." Its wings, translucent and vast, reflected the suns in blinding flashes. Citizens screamed as it swooped toward a group of floating platforms. Ethan felt a surge of panic, but also clarity. He had been trained for emergencies, for diplomacy under pressure. This was different, but his instincts kicked in. Using a combination of his own problem-solving and guidance from Lysera, Ethan directed energy beams from control panels to gently herd the creature away from populated areas. Lysera enhanced his efforts with her Zitharan energy manipulation. Together, human and alien, they guided the creature toward containment nets. When it was finally secured, the crowd erupted into cheers. Ethan looked at Lysera, who gave a small, approving nod. In that moment, he realized something profound. Humans, though young and inexperienced in the galaxy, could match the courage and ingenuity of an alien civilization, and together there was nothing they could not face. That night, Ethan sat alone in his quarters, reflecting on the day. The crystal sands outside glimmered under the twin moons, and he could hear the faint hum of the city settling. He thought of Lysera, of her words, of her trust in him. He realized that his wish, spoken almost as a passing thought, was no longer a dream. It was a possibility, and the path ahead, though uncertain, was one he wanted to walk, step by step, with her. As sleep took him, Ethan felt a mix of fear and excitement. He did not know what trials awaited him in this alien world, nor how the politics and culture would test him. But one truth was certain. He had glimpsed a future where humans and aliens could share understanding, courage, and even love. And for the first time in his life, he truly believed that humanity's potential was limitless. Ethan awoke to the soft hum of Zithara's twin suns streaming through the translucent walls of his quarters. The city outside shimmered like a living jewel, and the air was alive with the faint vibration of energy flowing through the crystals. Despite the comfort and beauty, Ethan's mind was restless. His first days on Zithara had been a whirlwind of wonder, diplomacy, and the strange thrill of surviving a city under alien skies. Yet, he knew he could not afford to be overwhelmed by beauty alone. There were customs to learn, trials to face, and a bond to nurture that might determine not only his future, but also humanity's place in the galaxy. Lysera arrived as the first sun climbed high, her steps light and precise, making no sound against the crystal floor. She wore a simple robe today, soft blue that glimmered faintly in the light, and her hair floated slightly as if weightless. She smiled at Ethan, her eyes sparkling with a quiet amusement. "Good morning, Ethan," she said. "I trust your rest was sufficient. It is a world alive with energy, and it challenges even the most prepared minds. But you have courage, Ethan Ward. Courage is often more important than knowledge." Today, she had promised to show him the deeper workings of Zitharan society, beyond the spectacle of towers and floating platforms. They first visited the Hall of Energy, where Zitharans harnessed the natural currents of the planet to power their cities. Ethan marveled at the sight. Streams of shimmering light, flowing through crystalline conduits, twisting and branching like rivers of glass. Zitharans moved alongside these energy streams, adjusting flows with gestures and subtle thought commands. He watched as a young Zitharan adjusted the current, preventing an overflow that would have disrupted half the district. Lysera explained patiently, "Energy is life here. It flows through every being, every building, every device. To manipulate it requires understanding and empathy. We do not dominate it, we cooperate. If you are willing to observe, to feel, to respect, you may learn more than you think." Instead, she guided his hands gently, correcting, encouraging, showing subtle adjustments. Gradually, he began to feel the rhythm of Zithara itself. By midday, Ethan's confidence had grown enough that he could direct a small stream of energy safely to a distant crystal conduit. Lysera's eyes brightened, a rare smile spreading across her glowing features. "Well done, Ethan. You are beginning to understand our world. That is the first step." Ethan smiled at them and Lysera nodded approvingly. "You are making allies, not just learning skills," she said, but not all eyes were friendly. In the shadowed corners of the floating platforms, whispers grew among some elders. To accept a human into royal favor was one thing. To allow him to learn the sacred energies of Zithra was another. Ethan sensed the tension, even if he could not understand the subtle politics at play. That evening, Lysera invited him to a meal in her private quarters. The table was simple yet elegant, and the food was a combination of flavors and textures that Ethan had never encountered. He listened as Lysera spoke of her people, their history, their philosophies, and their belief that unity across differences was the highest form of power. "Humans are young in the galaxy," she said. "But your curiosity, your courage, your ability to see the unseen, these are rare gifts. That is why I am interested in you, Ethan Ward. Not because you are human, but because you are you." The twin moons bathed the floating towers in silvery light, reflecting off the lakes and canals in patterns like liquid diamonds. Ethan marveled at the view. It was beautiful, but there was something else, something that drew him closer to her. They walked in silence for a time, simply observing. Then Ethan spoke, his voice quiet. "Princess, I do not fully understand your world yet or your people's ways. I may never understand everything. But I want to try. I want to learn, not just for me, but for us. The path is not only through understanding, but also through courage and choice. Your heart will be tested as much as your mind." Ethan accompanied Lysera to a public demonstration of energy synchronization, where pairs of Zitherans channeled their abilities in perfect harmony to control floating structures, light, and weather patterns within the city. Humans had never been included before. Their presence alone sparked curiosity and skepticism. When Ethan was invited to participate under Lysera's guidance, murmurs swept through the onlookers. Could a human truly synchronize with Zitheran energy? Many doubted. The first attempt was chaotic. Ethan misjudged the flow, sending a small crystal platform spinning uncontrollably. The crowd gasped, and he felt the sting of failure, his face flushing. But Lysera's hand on his shoulder steadied him. "Focus on feeling, not forcing. Let the energy respond to you, not the other way around." With Lysera's gentle influence, he directed it into perfect alignment. The crowd erupted into whispers of astonishment and approval. That night, as they walked back to the palace, Ethan felt exhilarated and exhausted. "I can't believe I actually did it," he said, still in awe. "I never imagined I could work with your energy like that." "It is not merely ability that matters, Ethan. It is your willingness to adapt, to trust, and to learn. Humans have a flexibility we often lack. That is why I believe you can walk this path with me." Ethan learned not only the technical aspects of Zitheran life, but also the subtleties of their culture. The unspoken gestures, the nuanced tones, the quiet rhythms that guided decision-making. In turn, Lysera began to understand human resilience, ingenuity, and the way emotions could drive action in ways that logic alone never could. Yet the tension of the outside world never fully disappeared. News of the human-alien bond spread through the city like a quiet storm. Some citizens marveled at the possibility, seeing hope in unity. Others whispered warnings, skeptical that a human could truly belong among the Zitheran elite. Ethan sensed their judgment, but he did not falter. Each day he learned more, grew stronger, and proved that humanity was not fragile. It was capable of creativity, courage, and brilliance. On the fifth day, Lysera brought him to the edge of the city, to a platform suspended above the floating gardens. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have learned much in a short time, but the true test is not skill alone. It is understanding, trust, and the courage to act when all eyes are on you. Soon, the Council will announce the trial of unity. It will determine if our hearts and minds can truly harmonize. We will face it together, and perhaps in doing so, we will show that humans and Zitherans are not so different after all." With Lysera by his side, he was not just a human on an alien world. He was part of a story that might bridge the gap between two civilizations, proving that courage, curiosity, and the human spirit could achieve what others deemed impossible. And in that quiet moment, Ethan Ward felt a simple, powerful truth settle in his heart. Humanity had a place among the stars. The day of the trial of unity arrived with a sky that glowed like molten crystal. Twin suns bathed the city in dazzling light, reflecting off the towers and floating gardens. Citizens gathered on the crystal platforms, their luminous forms shimmering in anticipation. Even from a distance, Ethan could feel the energy of the crowd, a mix of curiosity, excitement, and tension. The trial was a sacred ceremony designed to test whether two beings, no matter how different, could harmonize their minds, hearts, and abilities. And today he would face it alongside Princess Lysera. Ethan's stomach twisted with nerves as he adjusted his jacket and followed Lysera toward the Hall of Trials. The building itself was a massive crystalline structure, spiraling upward with floating steps that moved in fluid patterns, adjusting to the steps of those who walked them. Each step seemed to hum in resonance with the traveler's own energy. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. He was a human, and humans were unpredictable. How could he hope to match the harmony of a Zitharan princess? Lysera walked beside him, her aura glowing softly. She glanced at him and offered a reassuring smile. Ethan, remember what you have learned. It is not power alone that matters. It is understanding, trust, and courage. I will do my best, princess, I promise. He saw visions of failure, of rejection, of leaving Earth and disappointing everyone who had believed in him. His heart raced, and he faltered, nearly losing his balance. Lysera touched his arm gently. Focus, Ethan. Do not fight the echoes. Acknowledge them, but do not let them control you. Your mind and heart are your own. He thought of his family, of the Earth he had left behind, of the friends who had believed in humanity's potential. He thought of Lysera and the trust she had placed in him. Slowly, the echoes began to lose their power, fading into harmless whispers. Together, he and Lysera moved through the chamber, their steps synchronized, their hearts steady. The shadows of doubt could not break their unity. Next, they faced the sky maze, a complex network of floating platforms suspended high above the city. The platforms shifted constantly, requiring agility, timing, and coordination. Ethan's heart pounded as he leapt from one moving surface to another, feeling the wind whip around him. Lysera moved beside him effortlessly, guiding his steps with subtle gestures. At one point, a platform tilted sharply, sending him sliding toward the edge. Panic surged through him, but Lysera's voice called out, Trust your instincts, Ethan. Move with the rhythm. Together, they reached the center of the maze, a glowing crystalline platform that pulsed with energy. The crowd below gasped in amazement. Never before had a human completed this part of the trial with a Zitharan. Ethan felt a thrill of pride, tempered by exhaustion. The third stage was the test of empathy, the most delicate and demanding challenge. They were placed in a simulation of a disaster scenario. A floating district threatened to collapse due to energy instability. Holographic citizens cried out for help, their faces realistic, their fears palpable. Ethan's task was to coordinate the evacuation and stabilize the structures, using both his reasoning and the Zitharan energy flowing through him. Ethan felt overwhelmed at first. The energy streams were unpredictable, the simulations perfectly timed to test his reactions. But he remembered Lysera's words, understanding and trust, not force, would see them through. He focused, communicating with the holographic citizens, guiding them safely to platforms and exits. He felt the flow of energy, not as a foreign force, but as a partner, responding to his intentions. Lysera enhanced his efforts, projecting a subtle glow to stabilize the structures, but it was Ethan's quick thinking that directed the flow efficiently. Together, they guided the citizens to safety. When the final holographic citizen reached a safe platform, the simulation ended. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the elders who had doubted a human's capabilities could not hide their astonishment. As they exited the test chamber, Ethan felt his legs trembling. I didn't know I could do that, he admitted. Lysera's gaze was proud. You did more than you realize, Ethan. You adapted, you trusted, and you acted. That is the essence of our trial. It is not skill alone, but the harmony of mind, heart, and action that matters. Lysera reached for his hand, and as their fingers touched, a current of energy passed between them. Ethan felt a strange warmth, a connection that went beyond understanding, beyond fear. The process required complete trust. They had to synchronize their breathing, their heartbeat, and their intentions. Ethan focused on Lysera, feeling the rhythm of her energy and finding the courage to let his own flow merge with hers. At first, the currents clashed, producing sparks and ripples that sent small waves across the chamber. But Ethan adapted, channeling his human creativity, imagining patterns and solutions that Lysera could not anticipate. Slowly, the energy stabilized. Colors danced along the walls, flowing in perfect symmetry. The chamber pulsed with life, reflecting the bond between human and alien. The council watched in silence, their expressions unreadable. For a moment, Ethan feared they would not approve. Then one by one they nodded, a gesture of acknowledgement and respect. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. Lysera smiled, radiant as ever. You see, Ethan, humans have a flexibility, an ingenuity that complements our ways. Together we create balance. Later, in the quiet of a floating garden, Ethan sat with Lysera, gazing at the twin moons rising above the city. I never imagined I could do any of that, he said softly. But with you, it felt natural. You have shown that humans are capable of far more than we often give them credit for, and I have learned much from your courage and creativity. He realized that this trial had not only tested his abilities, but had also revealed the depth of his character. As they walked back to the palace, the crowd's cheers echoing below, Ethan understood that the path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, political struggles, and perhaps dangers they could not foresee. But he also knew that with Lysera by his side, and with humanity's ingenuity and courage, they could face whatever came next. And in that moment, Ethan Ward felt a profound truth settle in his heart. Humans were not merely observers of the galaxy. They were participants, capable of courage, creativity, and unity. And sometimes, against all odds, they could stand shoulder to shoulder with the greatest civilizations in the universe. The night fell over Zithera, the twin moons casting silvery reflections across the floating city. Ethan and Lysera stood together on a balcony, hands intertwined, gazing out at the horizon. The trial of unity had been only the beginning. Ahead lay political intrigue, cultural challenges, and perhaps even dangers that could test not only their abilities but their bond. Yet, as Ethan looked at Lysera, he knew one thing for certain. They had faced the impossible and triumphed, and together there was no obstacle they could not overcome. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt that humanity's place among the stars was not just a dream. It was a reality waiting to be claimed, step by courageous step. The city of Zithera gleamed beneath the twin suns, but not all that glittered was safe. Ethan Ward had hoped that the successful completion of the trial of unity would bring recognition and acceptance, but the whispers he had sensed earlier were growing louder. Some of the elders and high-ranking officials still opposed his presence in the royal circle, fearful of the influence a human could wield. The morning began like any other, with Ethan following Princess Lysera through the crystal halls toward the council chamber. But as they neared the entrance, alarms echoed through the city, a low, vibrating hum that made the crystal walls pulse. Citizens paused, their attention drawn to the sky. Ethan's heart sank. He had faced trials and simulations, but he had not expected real danger so soon. Lysera's expression hardened. Ethan, remain calm. This is not the trial. Something else is happening. Panic rippled through the citizens as the drones targeted the city's energy conduits, threatening to destabilize the entire floating infrastructure. Sabotage, Lysera muttered under her breath. Someone is testing us, trying to prove that a human in my presence invites disaster. He had never faced real combat in an alien city, and the stakes were far higher than any simulation. What can we do? He asked. Lysera's eyes glowed. We protect the citizens first, then we stop them. Using the same reasoning and quick adaptation that had carried him through the trial of unity, he instructed citizens to move along alternate platforms, creating safe paths. Lysera amplified his commands, guiding both energy flows and people. Even with their combined efforts, the situation was dire. A floating platform threatened to collapse, carrying dozens of citizens. Ethan assessed the problem in seconds and shouted a solution, directing the Zitheran energy currents to stabilize the platform. He felt the energy respond to his human creativity, twisting and flowing in ways no Zitheran had predicted. With a surge of coordinated power, the platform steadied and the citizens reached safety. Lysera's voice cut through the chaos. Ethan, to the central chamber. That is where they control the drones. We need to disrupt the energy frequency without collapsing the city's grid, he said, his voice calm despite the urgency. Can you create a temporary diversion with your energy? Ethan seized the opportunity, analyzing the control patterns of the drones and predicting their next moves. Using the human ability to improvise, he tapped into nearby conduits, sending pulses that subtly disrupted the drones' link without harming the infrastructure. It worked. Drones began faltering, their formation breaking. But the lead drone remained, larger and more menacing than the others, its energy core pulsing aggressively. Ethan realized that this was no ordinary sabotage. It was designed to test them both. Lysera, he said urgently, we need to focus our energies together. Alone, we can't control it. Energy flowed between them in a rhythm that was both alien and familiar. Ethan channeled human ingenuity, finding solutions through creativity and quick adaptation, while Lysera provided precision and understanding of Zitharan energy laws. The currents merged, forming a harmonic resonance that enveloped the lead drone. Slowly, it stopped its attack and descended harmlessly to the ground. The remaining drones, without guidance, drifted inertly. Citizens cheered from the platforms, their voices echoing through the city. Ethan and Lysera looked at each other, both exhausted and exhilarated. But the danger was not over. Lysera's advisors approached, their expressions stern. Princess, this sabotage proves our fears. A human should not be so close to royal power. It is reckless. Those who oppose him underestimate the strength of collaboration. They explored the nuances of energy manipulation, focusing on combinations of human improvisation and Zitharan precision. Ethan found that his ability to think outside the rigid structures of Zitharan technique gave them a surprising advantage. Together, they created patterns and defenses that were elegant, effective, and unpredictable. One evening, as the twin moons rose and reflected across the floating city, Lysera brought Ethan to the palace garden, a serene place where floating lotus flowers glimmered in soft light. You have grown stronger, she said, her voice gentle. But the true challenge is not energy or skill. It is trust, strategy, and understanding the minds of those who oppose us. Lysera, in turn, learned to value human intuition and unpredictability, seeing that courage and ingenuity could complement even the most disciplined civilization. A week later, the threat of rebellion escalated. Intelligence from loyal advisors revealed a faction planning an attack during a public ceremony meant to celebrate Ethan and Lysera's bond. The rebels sought to destabilize the city, undermine the council, and discredit the human-alien union. Ethan and Lysera devised a plan. Using a combination of illusions, energy manipulation, and strategic evacuation routes, they prepared to protect both citizens and the city itself. Ethan's quick calculations and Lysera's precise energy control allowed them to predict the rebels' moves and counter them before any real damage could occur. When the attack began, it was sudden and chaotic. Drones swooped through the air, illusions danced to mislead attackers, and citizens moved along safe paths they had rehearsed. Ethan and Lysera coordinated in perfect harmony, their actions complementing each other. Human intuition and creativity anticipated the unexpected, while Zitharan's skill and energy control maintained stability. The rebels, confronted by such unity, hesitated. Ethan saw an opening and spoke to them calmly through amplified communication energy. Your goal was to prove humans weak. But we have shown that courage and collaboration surpass fear. Lay down your arms. There is no victory in destruction. As the city settled into calm, Ethan and Lysera stood on a balcony overlooking the restored platforms. Citizens waved, cheers echoing across the floating gardens. The danger had passed, and the human-alien partnership had emerged stronger than ever. Lysera turned to Ethan, her glowing eyes reflecting pride and warmth. You have shown true courage, Ethan. Not just in the trials, but in facing real danger. You have proven that humans are capable of brilliance, loyalty, and wisdom. You are more than I ever imagined. And that is why we succeed. Unity is not about power alone. It is about trust, understanding, and courage. You, Ethan Ward, have shown all of these qualities. You have earned your place not just with me, but among my people. He had faced danger, political intrigue, and sabotage, and he had emerged not just alive, but respected. More importantly, he had proven that humanity, though young in the galaxy, possessed creativity, courage, and ingenuity capable of standing alongside the greatest civilizations. That night, as Ethan walked through the quiet gardens with Lysera, he realized something profound. The journey was far from over. Challenges would come again, in politics, in diplomacy, and perhaps in conflicts beyond Zithara itself. But he also knew that with trust, courage, and collaboration, humans could not only survive but thrive. And in that moment, holding Lysera's hand under the twin moons, Ethan felt the quiet but powerful truth of their union. Together, human and alien could face anything, and humanity's place among the stars was not just a hope. It was a promise waiting to be fulfilled. The twin suns rose over Zithara in a dazzling display of light, scattering gold and violet across the crystal towers. The city shimmered like a living jewel, and citizens gathered on the floating platforms to witness an event that would be remembered for generations. Today was the day of the official union between Princess Lysera and Ethan Ward, a human whose courage, ingenuity, and unwavering spirit had proven humanity's worth to an entire alien civilization. Ethan stood beside Lysera in the palace courtyard, his uniform immaculate but his hands trembling slightly with anticipation. Despite the trials, the sabotage, and the political tension he had faced, this moment felt different. It was not a test or a battle. It was a celebration, a recognition that humans and Zitherans could come together as equals, as partners. Lysera looked radiant, her glowing robes flowing like liquid light. Her hair floated slightly, catching the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with a mixture of pride and warmth. She reached out and took Ethan's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Are you ready, Ethan?" she asked softly. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Yes, Princess. I am ready to face this moment with you, whatever it may bring." The elders of the council presided, their expressions solemn but respectful, while Lysera's closest advisors observed cautiously, their earlier doubts tempered by the events of the past weeks. The ritual required Ethan and Lysera to demonstrate unity not just in words, but in action. They approached the Crystal of Harmony, a massive prism at the center of the courtyard that amplified energy and reflected it across the city. Standing side by side, they extended their hands toward the crystal, and a soft hum began to resonate. Ethan felt a surge of energy flow through him, a sensation both alien and familiar. Memories of the trial of unity, the sky maze, and the sabotage flashed in his mind, each challenge reminding him of what he had learned and accomplished. He focused not on fear or doubt, but on the bond he shared with Lysera. Lysera's energy joined his, intertwining seamlessly. Colors danced along the crystal, swirling into patterns that symbolized harmony, courage, and trust. Ethan felt a deep connection, not just to Lysera, but to the people around them. He realized that unity was not only between two individuals, it extended to a civilization willing to embrace difference, innovation, and bravery. A hush fell over the crowd as the crystal responded to their combined energy. It pulsed with vibrant light, projecting images of past trials and heroic acts. The Chamber of Echoes, the Sky Maze, the Test of Empathy, and the thwarted sabotage. Each moment shimmered in the prism, a testament to what could be achieved when courage and ingenuity met trust and wisdom. Ethan glanced at Lysera and their eyes met. In that gaze, words were unnecessary. They had faced danger, proven themselves, and now stood united, not just as human and alien, but as equals, partners, and leaders. The elders of the council stepped forward. "Ethan Ward," one said, his voice reverberating through the courtyard, "you have demonstrated courage, wisdom, and loyalty beyond what we expected of a human. You have earned not only the trust of Princess Lysera, but the respect of our people. Do you accept the responsibilities that come with this union?" "I, Princess Lysera, choose Ethan Ward not merely for his abilities, but for his heart, his courage, and his unwavering spirit. Together, we will lead, learn, and protect our people. I accept the responsibilities of this union." The citizens cheered, their voices a harmonious blend of sound and thought resonance. Humans and Zitherans alike witnessed the first true bond between species, a symbol of unity, courage, and hope. After the ceremony, Ethan and Lysera addressed the citizens. Ethan stepped forward first, his voice amplified through Zitheran energy channels so all could hear. "Today is not just the union of two individuals," he said, glancing at Lysera. "It is the union of ideas, cultures, and civilizations. We have shown that courage, curiosity, and respect can bridge even the greatest differences. Humans may be young in the galaxy, but we are capable of remarkable achievements when we embrace understanding and collaboration. May this bond be a symbol of hope and inspiration for all who dare to believe in cooperation and courage." It was a moment unlike any other, a moment that transcended species and cultures. Later, as the celebrations quieted and the twin moons rose above the city, Ethan and Lysera found themselves alone on a balcony overlooking the floating gardens. The soft glow of bioluminescent plants cast gentle light across their faces. Ethan turned to Lysera, his heart full. "Princess," he said, his voice quiet but steady, "I never imagined I could experience something like this. Not just the trial, not just the danger, but this. Being accepted, trusted, and standing here with you, it feels incredible. You have shown that humanity's strength lies not only in intellect or skill, but in heart, determination, and the courage to act when it matters most. Courage, creativity, and collaboration had carried him this far. As the night deepened, Ethan and Lysera walked through the floating gardens, hand in hand. Ethan noticed the subtle changes in the city. Platforms now glowed with new patterns, energy conduits pulsed in harmony with the citizens' movements, and the atmosphere felt lighter, almost celebratory. It was as if the city itself acknowledged the significance of the day. Lysera paused beside a crystalline pond, its surface reflecting the twin moons. She looked at Ethan, her expression serious yet warm. Ethan, the future will not always be easy. Challenges will come not just from outside, but within. But know this, together we are stronger than any obstacle. Humans and Zitherans, united in purpose and heart, can achieve what no single being could alone. Not because you are human, but because you are brave, true, and steadfast. You have shown that courage and ingenuity are not limited by species. Together we will lead, inspire, and protect, not only our people, but the hope that cooperation can transcend worlds. The celebration continued, but for Ethan, this quiet moment felt more profound. He had come to Zithera as a human diplomat, unsure of what the future held. He had faced trials, danger, and political challenges. And now he stood united with an alien princess, accepted, respected, and ready to lead alongside her. Ethan realized that this union was more than personal, it was a symbol. Humanity, despite being young and inexperienced in the galaxy, had proven it could rise to greatness. Courage, creativity, and the willingness to learn and adapt could bridge even the most impossible divides. And with trust and unity, humans could stand among the stars as equals, partners, and leaders. As the night deepened and the celebrations quieted, Ethan and Lysera returned to the palace. The halls were filled with quiet energy, a testament to the lessons learned and the challenges overcome. Citizens and advisors alike acknowledged the human-alien partnership, some with admiration, others with cautious acceptance. But all recognized the significance. A new era had begun, one of unity, courage, and hope. Later, in the privacy of their chambers, Ethan looked at Lysera and smiled. "Princess, I never imagined that a simple wish could lead to all of this, but here we are. Together, we have not only found unity, but also shown what humans and Zitherans can achieve when we trust and believe in one another." With Lysera by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited, secure in the knowledge that courage, creativity, and unity could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. The twin moons shone above, reflecting in the crystal towers and the floating gardens. Ethan held Lysera's hand, feeling the warmth of her energy and the strength of their bond. Together they looked toward the horizon, toward a future full of possibilities. A future where humans and Zitherans could share knowledge, courage, and hope. A future where humanity's place among the stars was no longer uncertain but assured. And in that moment, Ethan Ward knew one truth above all others: the stars were not out of reach. Humanity could rise, thrive, and achieve greatness beyond imagination. With courage in the heart and unity in the mind, anything was possible. And together, human and alien, they would face the future as partners, equals, and friends.